Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our third episode, Coffee with Leaders with Supply Chain Redefined. Today, we are going to meet one of our special guests, Frank from Macroway. Macroway is one of the leading MHE manufacturers. They do different robotic systems for the warehouses. And today, we are going to discuss about how can we enhance human robot synergy during peak seasons. So, with peak season coming up, how can we synergize the efficiency of operation? How can we improvise the operation using our robotic systems? So happy to meet you, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be
um,
here.
yeah, before we go into the topic or before we go into the discussion, tell me about Macroway and what Macroway does.
Yes. So McAvey leadership, over 40 years of experience in military and mechanical systems.
Mm-hmm.
They have over 30 years combined experience already in electrical and mechanical installations. Besides providing robotic services for their robotic vendors that they represent, they also do full system designs,
Mm-hmm.
of course, based on the customer needs and specifically products that need to be moved. And they currently have two standard products. One is, of course, the mobile warehouse, and second of all is the pick to light system.
Okay.
And they are fully automated,
Mm-hmm.
single operator. So they heavily rely on robotics.
And this you can integrate with any WMS systems, right?
Yes, and I think we're going to discuss that later on a little bit more in detail.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, of course, integration depends on current infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
technology stack, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So let's get into the topic. The reason why I took this topic is now everywhere robotic automation is the heart of the discussion. Everyone is talking about how can I automate my warehouse, because not only for the efficiency, how can they work on the ROI on the warehouse automation, how much they are spending, and also AI is also coming into picture. So my first question is how do you define collaborative robots in warehouse space, or operations, and what are all the how do you emphasize the synergy for the human robot collaboration,
Yeah, it's
particularly during peak season?
yes, and it's a very interesting concept because when we look at our mobile warehouse, we already operate under the notion that it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, if we're looking more towards permanent installations,
Mm-hmm.
then I personally feel that starting with the smallest steps of automation that truly have a return on investment is the way to go, slowly moving in the direction of collaborative robots.
Robots, yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because the market, because it is such a hot topic,
Mm-hmm.
the market is very flooded with a lot of systems.
Yes, you see a
And
huge lot of
yes,
systems in the market.
and it makes it extremely difficult for a customer to be convinced that they are picking the right system.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they also need to very often make sure that it's budgeted for,
Mm-hmm.
because some of these systems are not cheap.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and like I said, I think that once you seriously consider moving into automation, small steps, start with areas that you feel comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and then build upon it.
Yes.
And really the key is, in this case, is actually the software. It's actually the control systems that need to interact, don't have to be open source, but have to be open enough to grow and further expand your automation.
Yeah, because before you choose any automation system, you need to know what you want and what is the area that you want to automate. So we don't want to get into a place okay, I want to automate everything, and then stuck in the middle of okay, what do you really want? What is your ROI on it? So that's such a key piece of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's not forget that with this change comes also the requirement to change people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, let's say, warehouse people or even transportation people, these people now need to start working together with these robotic systems.
Yes.
And it requires a certain skill set. They don't have to become programmers, they don't have to, but they do need to be retrained to actually understand how these systems work. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not just, hey, we want to automate for the sake of automation. They really need to think through of, okay, yes, if we're going to automate a certain segment of our business, great, but we also need to make sure that we train the right people to support that.
That's a key point.
Yes.
And I think that is my next question too. So when you are doing collaboration with human robot interaction how do you do it in an existing warehouse? For example, if I am a customer and if I'm running a warehouse for peak season, I might need the system because I might not be able to handle the huge volume with the current workforce what I have. So how do we handle it during with the existing system, and how soon you can integrate?
Okay, so this is kind of what is unique about our offering here is this mobile warehouse concept, okay, which is specifically designed to be single operator, and in some cases we would even provide the operator for it, okay, and you just basically rent it for 3 or 4 months, handle that peak, and then it's taken away. Okay, so conceptually, we really don't, I don't want to say we're not concerned with, but that is actually one of the core pillars of the offering. Okay, is that it plugs in, it's, let's say, after Christmas, you have an influx of returns, let it handle the returns.
Returns.
Okay, or you need to, in November, you need to ship out, let it handle that, and then January we get it back.
So meaning
Okay.
like you handle forward logistics during peak season, and then after the peak season you handle reverse logistics too.
Correct, absolutely. Now, of course, if we're talking more permanent installation, because we do, as I mentioned in the introduction, we do offer full solutions for customers, then it actually becomes really the learning curve. And one of the key things is setting the expectation of the customer. Okay, because for some reason, if you have warehouse workers and they know that the system comes in for 3 months, they react completely different to it than when you say we're going to now put in permanent robots.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because for 3 months it's actually a toy, and they're okay with it. But as soon as you say it's going to be permanent, then you have to really start doing that retraining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And my next question is on the return of investment. So how do we, what the leaders, like whoever is opting for this automation piece, how can they justify the return of investment? Like, okay, I'm purchasing this today, and what are the metrics they need to keep in mind for calculating their return of investment
Yes.
down the line after 5 years or 10 years?
Yes. I personally feel this is the most difficult part of the whole process. Okay. In robotics, there is a big disconnect between the hype of marketing and the reality of implementation.
Yes.
Okay. And that's very difficult to overcome because, especially if you're dealing with the C suite, they travel a lot, they see all the big billboards at the airports and robots and automation, and it's solving all the problems in the world. However, the reality of implementing systems is a totally different ballgame. Okay, so the biggest hurdle is convincing and setting the expectations at the higher levels.
Yes.
Now, If you have, especially the top leadership, that actually has enough of a vision that understands that maybe not today, but in 5 years, we're going to have a shortage. In 5 years, we are going to run out of people. Okay. That's where you can actually make the inroads, because there is an understanding that the return on investment doesn't have to be instant.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll give you, short example. You are aware we were at Pack Expo in Chicago, and actually this time I drove up. Well, soon as you go 2465, okay, up to Chicago, the amount of distribution square footage that's being built is mind-boggling.
Yes, you can see
Okay.
warehouses everywhere.
We're talking million square foot, 2 million square foot warehouses that are so big, these distribution centers, that you cannot even see the other side of the building.
So
Okay.
much of doors, so much of it's big warehouses.
Yes, but which is all fine, which is all great, but all that space need to be managed. And then remember, that's really in the bigger distribution concept of warehousing. That's only the first step, is these big distributions. Now we got to get it to the regional, and then we have to get it to the local, and then eventually we're going to get it to, the store, or to the final area where the product is consumed.
And also, like the leaders, C-suite leaders, right? They have a wrong perception that okay, my automation will take care of everything. It replaces my human labor force in a day, wipes out like no labors. It completely replaces with automation. What's your perception on that?
Okay, so not the case. Now, does it reduce physical labor? Yes. Okay. But at the same time, if I don't know, let's do an example. Just, I don't even know if it's real, but conceptually, if we have 4 people working in the warehouse and they make $25 each. Okay, so those 4 people cost you $100. Okay, now you're going to get a robot to do what these 4 people did. Well, guess what? You are going to need a person probably in the $60 to $80 to $100 range to manage that robot.
So it's like reduction in cost.
So when it comes to the labor side, there is very little reduction in cost. However, increased efficiency, less errors, 24/7, as we just saw at the beginning, the
Yes.
Kifnon. Once you turn it on, it will run
All 24/7.
24/7, 365. It just keeps running. So now, instead of running one shift, you can run 2 shifts or even 3 shifts. More and more of these bigger places are starting to run 24 hours a day. Yes, there is a slight reduction, okay, but I think there are more benefits on the other end that eventually are going to kind of prevail and justify the investments.
Yeah, that's why it's called human-robot collaboration.
Yes,
It's
yes.
a team effort. I would say.
Correct. Yes, it definitely is.
And my next question is on the AI side of it.
Yes.
So how do AI contribute to the collaborative adaptation of the collaborative robots in handling diverse and unpredicted volume of tasks that we need to do during peak?
Yes. So one of my favorite subjects. Okay. Really, it's very interesting, because what we have found out, and I know we're going to address this a little later on, is that anytime you deal with robotics in structured environment, it is very unfriendly to change. Okay. Now, in certain areas, that's fine. If we have a manufacturing line that, I don't know, has bottles that get filled, we pretty much know that there's very little variation in it. Okay. But if we have a robotic arm that's stacking up boxes on a pallet,
Mm-hmm.
there is no guarantee that all those boxes are going to be perfect on that pallet. There might
Yes.
be one box that's off on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this particular area I think is ripe for, I don't want to generalize it as artificial intelligence. It's much more kind of machine learning
Mm-hmm.
and using some generic algorithms that can actually teach the arm or the robot to make those adjustments and be forgiving. So one of the primary areas of focus is how can you actually get artificial intelligence close to the robot, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I both know if we're programming something
Mm-hmm.
and the arm picks it up, X, Y, Z coordinates, everything is perfect. If there is a change, then we need to put in the new locations.
Get it. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's the area where I think there's a lot of potential to make changes and make these robots be less perfect, more human. Okay.
And like one of the sweetest thing about AI is like it learns from its mistakes, right? Like it's a kind of a self-learning robots that the market is building, and that optimizes its errors and it fixes its errors. And over the course of the year, like year, 1 year or after a year, it fixes the errors whatever it making. So that's a
Yes.
cool thing about the robots, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 And that is where it's moving to
Mm.
because it things are not perfect in the world, and this is one of the areas where, especially if you do multiple automations
Mm-hmm.
inside a warehouse
Mm.
or inside a manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
facility, is that you need to treat it as a full system.
Yes. Yes.
You cannot treat it individually. And I think that there is slowly a movement by robotic vendors
Mm-hmm.
to be more and more open and give access to their system.
Yes.
Where before, of course, the R&D is so much and so expensive that they like to operate under closed
Closed
systems.
system. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one particular area where I see this is still a huge issue is in the drones, especially in delivery drones. It's, yes, you can get the video feed, but there is no way you can actually give it a flight path.
True.
So this is, yes, you can control it and all that stuff, but there's no APIs that say, look, go pick this up here and move it here. So that still needs to evolve.
Next question is my
Yes.
interesting, the question which I like most: WES versus WMS. So in the market, like everyone is talking about, okay, WES, WMS, which one is best for me? Okay, I have a peak season, hectic peak season coming up. Do I need to adapt to WES or do I need to adapt to WMS? So what's your thought on WES versus WMS?
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so in our case, in the mobile warehouse, we combined the two.
Mm-hmm.
The execution system is combined with the warehouse management system. Really, we can do that because it's a closed system conceptually. Okay, so we do induction, we know what comes in, we know the inventory, we know where we store it, all that stuff, closed system. Not that the system is closed that you cannot access it, but theoretically it's a closed system. Of course, the control system, or let's do it this way, the execution system needs to have data from the management system.
Management system. Yes.
Okay, so it's almost like a digital twin where the management system feeds the control system.
Mm-hmm.
But then you definitely need that step back where now the execution system says, wait a minute, let's optimize this or let's change this. It needs to communicate back.
Mm-hmm.
Where traditionally warehouse management systems is, I call old data, okay, that just kind of sits there. It already executed. It's you're not really telling it anything new, but that circle does need to be completed.
Yeah.
Okay, and Yes, some people are using digital twins for that. Although the problem with digital twins very often is literally the transport of all that data, especially if they run it in the cloud. Okay, so it all depends on infrastructure, it all depends on technology stack. And, I mean, we've gone into warehouses that haven't had their electricity upgraded for 100 years. So you cannot even plug in stuff.
So it's not about like WES versus WMS. It's both. WES and WMS both work as a twin side
Correct.
by
Yes,
side.
yes, they have to. And that's what we do in the mobile warehouse is before we even send a single mission, we do a lot of pre-processing. We do bin optimization. We do kind of define which product is going to be a bestseller, and then we do the vision component. So all those parts, then we say, okay, now we can create a mission. So now go pick up this bin and move it over there.
Yeah, because as we were discussing earlier, I see a lot of customers asking, okay, I need only WES. I don't think I need WMS. So, like, customers don't understand the real importance of WES and WMS running side by side. Yes, we need WES. At the same time, we need WMS to certain aspects of accounting or sending the information to the host,
Yes.
interacting with different upstream systems. We
Yes.
need WMS.
Yes. No, I agree. And it's each application has its own responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because like you mentioned, the warehouse management system, yeah, that might have to integrate with, I don't know, some ERP system
Mm-hmm.
or some accounting system, and where the execution system might actually be pulling in data from some language model or from some AI point of view, so it really is a combination of many different things that make the system complete.
Got it.
Yes.
And my final question for this episode is, can you share any instances that collaborative robots fell short of expectations? And what is the lesson learned from it, and how we are taking it, fixing it for the future of the robotic era, which we are focusing on?
Okay. Personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
When we started just the mobile warehouse,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is everything was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Every bin lined up correctly, every rack, everything perfect. Okay, system ran beautifully until we moved it the first time. Because remember, it's on trailers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we move it,
Mm-hmm.
it moves around. Okay, and basically learning that 2 or 3 millimeters can make or break a system. Okay, so yes, automation is great, but unless it is in a cage, in a glass enclosure,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing else happens to it, you have to treat it as a system. It really, really, regardless how many layers you have, how many software applications, you have to treat it almost like a biological system
Mm-hmm.
where there is going to be changes.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? After a while, robots do get their own personality.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I can honestly tell you that on the system behind you, you can see there are 2 robotic arms on rails. Okay, well, number 1 behaves different than number 2. Same model, same code, same everything. But when they run constantly, you start finding out that, hey, this one behaves a little different than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make those adjustments, and you need to build that in your philosophy in providing the full solution.
That's
Things will go wrong. And if you make it too strict, then the system will fail.
it's all like learn from your mistakes, right?
Yes.
Like learn
Yes.
from your mistakes, like slowly fix this, and then what's the lesson you are learning from it, and slowly, like down the line, like 5 years, obviously it'll be ruling the market for sure.
Yes, no, absolutely, and it's a constantly learning, proposition. It's you never stop learning, and you learn every day something new.
Hmm.
And sometimes the fixes are easy. I mean, later on I'll show you the Unbox Robots, which is one of their partners. Originally, the end effector was two metal bars.
Hmm.
Okay. And I will show you that now we have like this little wedge that has a little point. Well, that little wedge allows for 2 to 3 millimeter space on each side of the bin if the bin is not perfect. Because when we move this thing, the bins are going to move. And you cannot expect a customer that every time they want to run the system, they have to make sure that everything is perfect. They just want to come in, press the button, and let it run.
Thank you for your time, Frank. It was a good discussion. I hope audience would have enjoyed it. With peak season coming and human robot collaboration is coming into the picture with the larger customers. I hope like this will be a starting point with a lot of customers on how they can enhance their system and their warehouses.
Yes.
Thank you for your time, Frank.
Thank you. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.